Ladies and gentlemen, in this episode, you are going to hear opinions, and while the podcast is endorsed by Uriah Heep, the opinions of the host and various guests do not necessarily represent the opinions of the band or any of the members past or present. With that being said, let's celebrate the music of Uriah Heep. Welcome to Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I'll be covering every studio song the band has recorded and every bonus track that I can find. Each week we'll go over a new song from the beginning to where they are currently, and as they keep adding albums, I'll keep adding shows. Let the deep dive party begin.
In the magic garden, some were singing, some were dancing.
Hello and welcome to Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I am your host, Scott Haskin, and today we have two versions of a song that we're going to go over, although there really aren't a lot of differences between the two. Slight differences, but nothing major, but we will go over them. Now, this song is called One More Night, and the alternative or original version of it was called Last Farewell. You can kind of see how those titles work. And here is the album release version of it called One More Night by Uriah Heep. Boy, it just kicks right in, doesn't it? Nice little sort of almost tribal drum fill intro from Lee Kerslake. Then it just kicks right into a shuffle. And we have really interesting guitar sound here that really reminds me of the guitar sound on Tears in My Eyes from Look at Yourself. Just has that same sort of screechy quality to it that I really like. Sounds good, but I like that the guitars are featured in there. And just a great groove right off the bat. I mean, you can't go wrong with putting a shuffle on an album. If no one else has taught us that, Uriah Heep certainly has. I really like hearing that inverted beat part from Lee Kerslake where he's playing on the ride cymbal a little bit. That is really nice. That's a nice unexpected change. Fits very well, but didn't really see that coming. Nice strong vocal, of course. Great rhythm, just keeping the whole thing going. But I really just love the guitar in, after the verse going into the next part. I just love the sound of it. I love what it's playing. It's right back in that register that we've talked about so many times where it could just be really annoying or too screechy for the ears, but it's just below that and completely pleasant. I don't know how they found that magic, but that is something that they've definitely been the masters of. Yeah, let's see what happens next. I don't know if you guys noticed, and maybe it's just my ears, but the snare sounds so much better on this song than the couple we've listened to on this album so far. It's a little bit beefier, it's a little bit poppier, and it's featured a little bit more in the mix. It feels like he's really hitting it instead of just a little more gently, which is typically the opposite on a shuffle. Typically, Lee, has to hit twice, so he hits lighter. But the snare sounds really good on this. I kind of feel the same about the kick as I have on the previous songs. But I love what Trevor Boulder is playing through this. The bass line is fantastic, very energetic, really keeping that groove going. Really nice. And of course, as always, a passionate vocal from John Lawton. Guitars are just sit right perfectly in the mix for me on this song.
I'll be
That is a long, sustained backing vocal there. Uh, it's good when you're on the road and you have to sing a lot. You can really keep up that power in your voice. You can sustain for longer periods of time because you're always exercising those muscles. And, of course, there's a little downtime when they are in the writing process, but I would imagine through the writing process, even they're still singing, they're practicing that. So you have the ability to really build up those vocal cords and make them very powerful. And this is a perfect example of that kind of power because those sustains are pretty long for a group of people to do. And I think it sounds fantastic, really adds a lot to it. What a great solo. Love that harmony at the end of it. Some really great dynamic finger work. Just really fit the song very beautifully. Try and listen to what the guitar is playing in the background. I think it's a second guitar that is just playing like one nice chord and then bends into a higher note. Sounds really good. It's just a simple thing. But again, one of those cases that shows how adding one simple thing can make a huge difference in a song. So we have another ending with a lot of repetition. The only real changes that we're hearing, at least in the front of the mix, is just John Lawton kind of going off on his own a little bit with whatever he was feeling in that moment. But, no real musical changes through that. Again, no drum rolls, no bass fills, nothing. Very straightforward as this lineup has come to be. And that's fine. That was a stylistic choice at the time. Different from what we had known in the past, but this is where they were in 1978, late 1978 when the album came out. And it's a good song. It's got a great groove to it. I love the shuffle feel to it, even though it's not played as the typical double shuffle and that you would hear from Lee. Bass line is totally grooving. Guitar's got some great stuff going on. Solid performance from John Lawton. Love the solo. I would give this another thumbs up. So in terms of Last Farewell, which is the alternate version of this, I really think it was just an alternate take of the song because it's pretty much the same. When I compare them, what I do is I load both songs into my workstation and I look at them visually. I try to find a spot where I can line them up. And usually there's very visibly a chorus, the first chorus or a pre-chorus or something where you can visually see that they match or are very similar. So I'll line those two up and then I'll just go through the songs and listen to what each one is doing so I can figure out what the differences are. I heard a few different drum choices, but not really much in the way there. I think there's a little bit more guitar in the mix, so I want to highlight that a little bit. I can't remember if the solo was different now or not, so we'll check that out. But it's basically the same song. It's a little bit shorter, but that comes from different types of fades and that sort of thing. Different intro, whether they had done something that might have been cut out in the final. But in any case, here is the opening for Last Farewell. So you could hear that solid hi-hat count all the way through the intro, which was not the same on the intro we heard on the album version. So that was the first clue to me that at the very least, it was a different drum track, let alone maybe just a different take or a different recording altogether. But the sound is consistent. So I have to think it was done right around the same time. It leads me to believe that it's more likely that it was an alternate take, and that I can't imagine they would have recorded all those backing vocals twice, but maybe they did. It sounds very consistent though in the backing vocals, so I'm going to say it's probably just an alternative drum track, if nothing else. Or maybe some of the stuff is mixed a little bit differently because, like I said, the guitars are a little bit louder, which we'll check out next. Yeah, the recording is so consistent, but it seems like the drum and guitar tracks at least are different. And there may be some other differences in there, I'm not sure, but that's what I'm hearing so far. Let's take a listen to the solo, see maybe we can learn something there. Yeah, it was definitely brighter in the mix. I think there were some different parts played, but it was very, very similar at the very least. But loved it. Yeah, absolutely loved that solo. Let's just check out the way that the song faded out. So it was a shorter fade, but I did go back and compare the guitar solos again, and they're pretty much spot on. The album version has a clearer mix for the guitar solo, so that's nicer. I don't know what was behind The Last Farewell. I do hear some differences, but not enough to say it's really that much of an alternative version because it's basically like the same song structure. There wasn't like a part that they deleted or anything like that. It was just maybe tightened up, a slightly different performance, but a good one nonetheless. It's a good song. It's nice and solid. Again, we're just into a different time in music, and when you compare like an album like this to what people knew the band from, like Demons and Wizards or Look at Yourself or those era of albums, it is very different. It is a different band, but it's also a different time in music. And if bands aren't growing, if they're not evolving in different ways, whether an individual thinks it's a better or worse direction to go, a band can't be stagnant. They just can't. You go on the road, you learn a lot. You learn from what other releases are coming out at that time. You learn from other things that you discover during that time. And all those things get baked together into the writing of the next album. So they're in a good, solid place here. I feel like this is probably some of the more radio-friendly stuff that they've done over the years. I don't know what songs had been selected for radio, but I can certainly say that so far, a lot of what we've heard could have been a radio-friendly song, especially back at that time. So that's going to do it, guys. Happy Friday to you all. I hope that your day passes quickly into what feels like an incredibly long weekend, because you know what? You work hard. You deserve it, damn it. Do something great for yourself and take a moment to do something for someone else. You can make such a difference by doing even very little. Just telling somebody you think about them, telling somebody that they popped into your head and you wanted to say hello, whatever it takes. Just go out there and do it. Make people happy. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next week. Cheers. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. If you have enjoyed this show, please consider going over to Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast outlet, leaving a rating or a review. Be sure to subscribe to make sure that you are notified when new episodes are available. Please be sure to share this podcast with your fellow Uriah Heep enthusiasts and anyone who you think would like Uriah Heep, which should be everyone. And if you are so inclined, please feel free to contribute to the Patreon account. And if you are not a Patreon subscriber, you can also pay through the PayPal link on the website listed in the show links below. I would also like to thank Uriah Heep for their very generous support of the show, and thank you guys for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. Happy days!